If you enjoy this episode and want to support what we're doing, the easiest way is to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're serious about playing Latin percussion, head over to CongaChops.com, where you'll find over 90 hours of lessons, courses, and masterclasses with some of the world's top percussionists, all with a free 7-day trial. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So in the last episode, we talked about what we kind of decided is the most essential and maybe the initial component when it comes to getting gigs, which is honing your skills on your instrument. Something that, seems a little bit, something that isn't always, considered the first initial step when it comes to getting a gig. But I think it goes without saying that when we're in a musical setting, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we have spent enough time with our instruments to contribute something musically meaningful. If you haven't checked out episode 1, go back and check it out. It'll be linked here. The second part that we want to talk about that I think is also something that we can agree on that is equally important is how we kind of navigate the business of music or navigate the gig once we get the call, whether that's for one gig, whether that's for a tour or whatever it may be. There's certain things that we have to keep in mind musically as well as outside of music that are going to help us kind of have an understanding of how we can make sure that we kind of carry ourselves in a professional way, and that sort of lives in the musical camp and in the personal camp, which is a lot of the times more so the reason we're going to get a gig, and specifically and especially more so the reason we get to keep the gig, is because, personally we do certain things in a certain way that allow us to, to get the calls. So I would say, the most important thing that we develop over time is our reputation. Yeah. And again, musically and personally. Something that I always try to keep in mind, regardless of how under or over prepared I may be for a certain musical setting, is to make sure that I'm bringing the right vibe as a person. So that means no matter what you're playing, having at least a sort of positive outlook on what it could be, regardless of where you feel you're at or where you feel the music is at or what the band sounds like. And I'm sure you guys can attest to the difference that makes, whether it was what you brought or what someone else brought when you're in like a musical setting. Lopez, can you expand on that a little bit, or the importance or lack thereof of that?
Man, it's like your reputation precedes you, they say. Y te sigue después.
Yep.
Everywhere that you go. So that's the most important thing after when you get it. Being responsible as a human es lo más importante. Like, that's what's gonna keep you around. Are you a good person?
Yeah.
Are you a asshole to waiters? People wanna make music with good people.
Yeah, people they enjoy being around.
They enjoy being, exactly. You want to go get a coffee in the morning with that same person because you're going to be living with these people. Son tus compañeros de trabajo. They will be with you a long time. So that's the main factor that sometimes MDs look for, even than their actual like music. Yeah, their musical talent is important.
Sure.
But that's like the main...
All of the times I can think of when you get a gig, it's always word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's always a recommendation from someone who either knows the MD or knows the artist or is working with the artist. And so, that's your real, business card. It's like, okay, this person has an experience with you. Even sometimes when you get a call from someone that you haven't played with yet. The musical part is super important, as Lopez mentions, and it's always going to be, sort of the forefront. It's like, okay, is he at a level where he can bring something positive to the gig musically? The thing that I think becomes the deciding factor is like, all right, is this cat a good hang?
Yeah.
Like, can I, knowing that if let's say we're doing a tour, we're on stage 2 hours a night, 4 days a week, what about the other 22 hours, 7 days a week? What's the vibe? Like, is it somebody that I have to worry about? Is it like, and all those things, although they may seem sort of trivial, may play a huge factor, especially when someone's putting their reputation on the line to recommend you or me to something that, they're not even going to be present at. You know what I mean? Kilo, you can chime in on maybe situations where that stuck out to you, where you noticed maybe you had to keep your distance from a certain type of energy on a gig, or whether you wanted to try to bring a certain kind of energy to a gig.
That's something I think about often. It's become a focal point of my life, is making sure I have my tools to get back to myself. Because there's going to be I do a lot of subbing and one-shots and meeting different people, and the energy's weird, or I might take home some tension that I don't want to take to the next gig because it's completely different band, completely different setting, and they don't deserve for me to be stressed out or tired because I was working with these people for 4 days, and now I have that aggressive energy. So resetting to myself and having the tools, whether it's meditation, yoga, or getting in the gym, sauna, whatever, going for a swim, whatever you have to do to get yourself back to your energy, because we spend a lot of time with different people that have different ways of coping.
Yeah, good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yeah, sorry. Different backgrounds, different morals.
Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with any of that.
All of us, we have our things that we kind of rely on to, feel centered in a way, whether that's, that's such a broad topic. But I think that something that's super important that will absolutely impact musically speaking, as well as in relationships that we all have with different people. Just like when we're on a bandstand and, us as working musicians and that have been able to do this for quite some time, we're always considered, we talked about in the last episode, all right, how does this feel? All right, cool. Am I locked up with the drummer? Am I playing too loud? Am I just, what do I use in this section? Those things, although they're paramount musically, they're even more important when you're talking about, your personal relationships with people. And what I mean by that is that just as I'm concerned with how my pocket feels alongside with the drummer, me personally, and I know these two guys because I know them very well for a long time, we're also concerned with how we make people feel outside of music. Those things, for me, they definitely intertwine, even if you don't want them to. Mm-hmm. You could be the baddest dude on earth and have the craziest sound and take monster soul and all this shit and play the perfect shit. But if you got a bad vibe around you and you carry that around, it's going to be really hard for people that are spending lots of hours with you all the time to focus on the good things you do, because the sort of the negativity that you surround yourself with at times, it happens to all of us, can kind of protrude. So I think, there's that saying of not everybody's going to remember what you do or where you come from or what, but they'll almost always remember how you make them feel. Right. And I think in a word of mouth industry like we're in, that's got to be one of the most important things on your checklist. It's all right, man, approach the gig always with the right attitude. Whether it's, if you're accepting a gig, regardless of whether it's the last gig on earth you want to do or your dream gig, you got to kind of sort of buck up and be like, all right, it's la parte del oficio. You got to take it as as seriously as any other gig, and put your best foot forward and try to make sure that you bring something positive, so that again, those things will absolutely relate musically. If you have a good vibe going on with the guys, everybody's going to be more open to everything that happens musically. Whether it's a train wreck or whether it's something that we all achieve, there's going to be a little bit more just fluidity in the communication. And I know people that are like that, and I enjoy being around them. And I know people that are not like that. And particularly, I don't enjoy being around them so much. Right. Everybody's got their people, and everybody's got, their choices and their groups of people. But I think someone that's bringing something positive, whether it's by cracking a joke at no one's expense, or whether it's just having a smile, or just someone that sort of has a nice, neutral energy. I always think of, and this cat, and this is funny because you'll probably see this at some point. But to me, one of the guys that comes to mind when I think of man, regardless of the music, regardless of whether we're playing one gig in fucking Beijing or whether we're playing a residency and I'm going to be with this fool, every day for the next 2 years, is this killing keyboard player, close friend of mine, Albert Menendez. And aside from his playing, and he's a legendary musician, all of that aside, which is super important, I can tell you that the one thing that most folks will probably never be able to utter is oh man, I had a really bad time when Albert was around. Nah, man. And that's, that to me, that's the kind of people I want to make music with, and there's, luckily we're fortunate enough to have people like that all over our industry. Mm-hmm. And, we also try to be that person that people sort of feels comfortable around. But I think that's something that is super important and translates musically.
Shout out to Albert.
Yeah, Albert, let's go, bro. I have a lot of catchphrases. I'm not sure if I can volume. That's all I'm going to say, Albie. I hope you see this. That's all I'm going to say. Those are kind of cues that we can take from people that, have been in the industry for a long time, A lot of my, they say, a lot of the times people say, don't meet your idols. And although that's true in many cases, there's also cases where that's not true. And you end up meeting people that you admire, and they end up being beautiful people. And it's oh, this makes complete sense. I can understand why this guy's on 1,000 recordings or done 1,000 tours. Because, he's a bad dude, but, he's just a great person to be around.
They make a mean coffee.
Yeah. Man, there's so many attributes that are important outside of playing.
Never thinking that there's a separation between your energy, who you are personally, and the way you sound on your instrument.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It all connects.
Yeah,
you play how you are. Even some of us are good at masking it sometimes, which is a great tool, because sometimes, you're a little down.
You have to.
Or you're not, and you gotta, you know what, I'm gonna, at least positivity will reign when I, play my instrument. I'm gonna save my energy for that. But hopefully we can sort of emanate that generally in the best and worst of times. For sure. On the subject of navigating the business of music, especially when we're talking about the business of playing music, which is, there's two different things that occur, right? There's the instrument side, the musical side, and then there's the side of okay, the actual business is not only pertains to, what you're making money-wise, but also, as we talked about so far, how you carry yourself and how you keep yourself healthy in every way, whether that's emotionally, physically, musically also. So maybe hit me with a couple, tips or scenarios that you felt like you had to kind of make a little switch up in the way you were dealing with stuff on the road, or maybe some of the challenges.
Yoga, show days without yoga, it sucks. Es lo que me deja seteado, mindset and physically, because you're traveling all day, mostly, or you've been in airplanes for hours, and it's a long day, and then you're playing at 9, 10 p.m. when you're tired. Yeah. Normally for me, that and coffee keeps me.
Coffee is one of those additives that we have a hard time doing.
Let it go.
Not always recommended, but
yoga for me, that it is a connection between my body and my mind that translates to the music. Yeah. Especially to a high level situation. That high level situation.
Yeah. High level, high pressure situation.
High level pressure
and low sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. very. Sometimes you do a gig in Colombia 1 a.m. and the we call is at 4 a.m.
Sure, yeah. On to the next, bro.
Exactly, and then going to a net city, and then your body is all this stuff. Lo que no nos dicen cuando estamos creciendo, you want to be a musician, right?
Claro. The classic Oscar Tañero. Quería ser músico.
Quería ser músico, exacto, yeah. Of course. That's the name of this series.
Now you know.
Ahí está el nombre de la serie.
Now you know.
Quería ser músico.
Yeah. Now you know.
Pero it's this thing of I need to find a way to connect that way.
In my case, I think some people do well on no sleep. There's just so many variables, right, to it. But I think anything that allows us to have some semblance of a routine, is so important and so nice to have. It's funny because I really enjoy traveling with my own microphones because I know it's something that's going to be consistent. Any semblance of consistency on the road, whether it's your backline, whatever it is, man. You know what I mean? Obviously, we have different routines. Being home is a whole different thing. And personally, I know we all enjoy being home because we get to be in our own space. And this might seem like something trivial to someone who's home all the time, but when you travel for work, it's very different than traveling for leisure. It stops
being fun.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. At least it's not fun for me. Yeah.
There's always this thing of it's a beautiful thing to be in different places and meet different people and try different food. All these things are wonderful, but when you travel for work, what you're really experiencing is lobby call, airplane, sound check, show, repeat. So the beautiful part of it is obviously, you meet amazing people and you see and you get an idea for places that you want to come back and visit. In your experience, Kilo, are there certain things that you realize that you either force yourself to try and implement or that you really miss when you're gone? What are the things that you kind of...
I'm pretty strict about the way I eat at home. And if I go on the road... And make it a point to... I'm going to be in Buenos Aires. I'm going to make sure I eat as much steak as I want. Or I'm going to be in Peru, so I'm going to make sure I eat all the ceviche I can. You have to be careful because you're going to be on a long flight in a couple of days and you don't want to feel like crap, and if your body's not used to doing that. How I eat and making sure I'm taking care of myself at all times and not getting lost I'm in this city for the first time. Right. And I'm not going to get time tomorrow, so let me go take a few hours at night and experience it. Shoving too much good experiences in, you're going to pay for it at some point.
Within reason. You got to find a way, a balance, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
And knowing your own limits and staying as consistent as you can. Like you're saying, if you need to do yoga before a show, if you need to work out or whatever, those things are really important.
I have certain hard rules, right?
Stretching, stretching is everything. For sure. Having a few yoga poses before you get on a flight that you know are yours, not being embarrassed about getting in that position or whatever.
Yeah, if you need to.
You're a very clean eater,
for sure.
You try to eat very clean.
But I need to because it keeps my head, my body feeling good, and then I'm not taking out I can get petty and I can get just as grumpy as the next person. So I've learned that if I'm eating too much fried foods, it's gonna make me a grumpy person. Sure. Or if I love steak, but I can't have steak every day. It can make me an aggressive person.
Yeah, or just make you feel lethargic. It's heavy.
Right.
That's definitely a tricky part. I think eating is probably the hardest part, and sleeping. With consistency in the way you want to when you're on the road. So it's, of course, I'm sure you've both learned to have some flexibility and leeway with it, because it's difficult to do your exact routine in that regard when everything else is so tumultuous,
You said it though. Sleep, prioritize.
Oh yeah.
That's a priority for me.
This is it's crazy, but the idea of getting consistent 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep on the road is not possible. No. Care who you are. I do. If you fly around on a G6 you got some
people that
tendencies.
do that, yeah.
But for like sidemen, you know what I mean? For sidemen, it's a little different. So I would say definitely.
Los que dan los tamborcitos
Yeah.
y todo eso.
I try to push for
it.
as much sleep as possible, you know what I mean? But also be apt and ready to deal with little sleep and sleep whenever possible.
That's what I'm saying.
like
Take the
a
hour
nap
when you
and-
can get it. Yeah.
That's super
Power
important.
naps. I learned our naps from you.
You weren't a
Yeah.
napper, huh?
Neither
funny
am I.
because,
like,
But you are, bro. You're
you
good.
are,
It's just,
though.
okay, I'm asleep
You
now.
want to hear
I'm
some
asleep.
crazy shit? Like at home, I don't think I've napped in over a year. But on the road, of course, bro. That's
Claro,
like essential, man. Like
It takes practice like anything else, though.
to just like zone out, and I can't. Yeah, I'm not a 20-minute napper. I'm like I need an hour.
An hour.
So
Yeah.
like it's not the most convenient
Right.
shit. It's also the kind of thing where like the certain hard rules that I mean, first of all, like I'm also like a big routine guy in terms of like I try to stretch every day in the mornings, home or on the road, and I try to at least weight train, you know, in some form or fashion, and I've gotten really good at adapting to shitty hotel gyms. And sometimes getting a day pass somewhere.
Right.
I try to do that 4 days a week, so it's not impossible. Like you're not going to be able to lift weights 7 days a week on the road.
No.
I mean, more power to you if you can, but there's certain things like sleep that become a priority more so than that. The idea that you can keep some semblance of consistency is super important. You know, as much musically as it is on a personal level.
For your mental health.
Yeah. It's so important, man. It's like taking care of your, you know, vessel, your shit is super important. And I think that you know, there's certain gigs like I mean, we all have and we'll have a wide spectrum of our extracurriculars that we partake in when we're on the road. I don't drink when I play.
Yeah.
Like I just not for me. I'll definitely, you know, I can go in hard anytime, any day, as long as I'm flying into an off day. So if I'm flying into a gig day, there will be no substances consumed by your boy.
As you get older, too.
It's a different hangover. It's a little different.
Yes,
as,
it is.
30
Yes, sir.
plus than 20.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I'm like that's a hard rule for me. Like I know that I'm just setting myself up for failure if I'm gonna get like really go out and party and sort of burn the candle on both ends while I'm flying into a gig. It's not for me. Done it. Been
You
there.
get dehydrated on the plane.
Not recommendable. But
It's
we were all
terrible.
built different. So more power to you if
Right.
you can, you know, motley crew that shit and string together. That's great.
They did it.
Yeah, they sure
We
did. Some of them are still alive. I mean, I think all of Motley Crue's alive. The fact that like Keith Richards is alive is some crazy shit. But we'll save that for
Partying back
another-
then, you can't compare.
Hey.
No. There's a lot of
variables.
They fly private.
for sure. That too.
I love the stare.
They fly private. The purity of the substances that were being consumed.
Sure,
There's a
it
lot
was
of
cleaner,
There's a lot of
All the
elements.
stuff was cleaner. Don't
There's a lot
touch it
of
now.
elements.
The food was
food
cleaner.
is cleaner.
A lot of stuff. Definitely keeping in mind the importance of having some sort of routine or consistency on the road is something that, again, this will absolutely impact your mood, which will impact everybody else's energy and mood, which will impact whether or not people call you for a gig or put you on the blacklist for being fucking unbearable.
And you're playing.
So, I mean, without a doubt, like rested us is much more everything, capable of everything, even just like listening, you know, it's like
That's the thing. You don't realize you're
it's-
not listening.
You,
Yeah.
you have to focus when you're on low energy. You have to focus so much on like not fucking up, I guess, in a way to just be like, all right, to be there.
You're like,
But it really kind of shuts things down. So
If you're well rested, if you're taking care of yourself, the times you have to do it,
Yeah.
you're more able to.
absolutely,
I don't think we should focus so much on the exceptions to
Yeah.
the rules because most of y'all, none of us are the exceptions or the rules.
Yeah, and not to say like you shouldn't be taking care of yourself so that you get gigs. That doesn't make any sense at all. You should be taking care of yourself so that when you're 80, if you still want to play this shit, you can. That's why you should, and for a million other reasons, not
It
just to
should
get
be
gigs,
said,
you know?
it's important to look good on stage.
For sure.
Like it's important to take the clothing you buy, how you carry yourself, your posture,
Yeah.
your
I have a
haircuts,
question.
and all that seriously.
Do you guys get gigs because of the way that you look?
Yeah, all the time.
I would say energy speaks volumes. So like, regardless of whether they're looking for like a 6'2" fucking Samoan dude to do a gig, which is not me, and
I
therefore
got
they
some
make
pretty
another call.
wild messages. So
Or like if they're looking for sometimes they're looking for like a good-looking light-skinned black dude that can really play and like dope, you fit the bill. And even if you can't play, sometimes you get the gig. You know what I mean? For those reasons,
I
would
know
say-
for a fact.
Yeah.
that both
For
for
sure.
having conversations with other people. That
I would
why-
like to say that like energy
You fit
is
the look.
Yeah, I would like to say that energy kind of like supersedes that in a way because you
Yeah.
get some
Oh, for
cats
sure,
that like
for sure.
if you're putting on like a show and you have a good vibe, I think that's super important. And then of course
I was
there
just
are-
tacking it on at the end of health.
for
Yeah.
sure. For sure, there's things that like you're gonna see people that certain gigs are gonna typecast people that they want you to look a certain way. I would say definitely there's nothing wrong with staying healthy and taking care of yourself. But the energy thing, which, sort of feeds off of that, is super important. Like, it doesn't mean you have to, like, go Tito Puente and really sell things as, like, the most consummate showman and performer, but definitely don't, look like you're in a bad mood all the time. On stage is helpful.
Smile.
You know what I mean? It's like, or even just vibe. It's just like, have a positive vibe. And
goes along with laundry, doing those things in time, and just taking care of your hygiene and having the right products.
Again, this is the things that we sort of take for granted, being at home and having a routine. But like, no, I mean, it's serious, bro. Like sometimes it's like you're tight on time, so it's good to understand what it is that you're traveling with. What you're prioritizing time wise. Are there any other sort of, or any experiences? Are there any times in your musical career or outside of music in general where these things kind of resonated, like the idea of like, oh man, I'm really glad that I had a routine all this time that kept me sort of in line, or man, I'm really glad that I have certain people in my circle that allow us, all to benefit from good vibes. Like, is there any, without having to name names, or you can talk about whatever you want, but
I don't know. I found a balance that I cracked the yoga thing, plus the, can I show this, the therapy thing.
Sure. Yeah.
The having somebody to talk about and work and getting some tools that will help me out dealing with other people that I can't. We don't stand on the same ground morally.
Sure.
Or like dealing with life. Yeah. Like having those tools, learning about my body and my mind. That has been more important to me to keep me sane during, like, in this career. Yeah. Than the instrument lately.
I think that's a super important step that we all take at some point, because there's things, of course, we're very fortunate that like playing an instrument is its own form of therapy in a way, or at least a form of expression. It depends on how it's definitely like an outlet, And so a lot of the times as musicians, we get to, sort of expel certain things from our energy just by playing. But it's not always going to be the all-encompassing way to, like, after years and years to just, I'm just going to play my problems away. That was never the case for me, like, in terms of dealing with the shit that I dealt with. It's definitely helped, just like lifting weights does, or just like playing a sport, or just like anything that's energy expenditure in some way is an outlet. And, obviously that wraps into mental health, because it's like, it's really hard for you to even consider trying to be yourself, whatever version of yourself that you want to put out there, when you don't feel well mentally. And like all of those things, man, the uncertainty alone that comes with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's like for I don't want to say the weak. Weak is not the word. It's like,
it's not for the faint of heart.
Exactly. Like you gotta be open to the experience of constant failure and waiting.
Yeah, and uncertainty. You gotta be willing to be in that unknown. And that's the beauty of that, is that serves you musically, as we talked about. Yeah. That goes hand in hand,
There's a passion that connects with that. Like you choose, okay, so this challenge, I'll fight it the music part of, or that hour that you get on stage of connecting with 20,000 people or 10 people in a jazz club. Like it doesn't matter how big that connection. It's like how you battle those things.
Yeah, Kilo, is there anything that it can be on the mental health tip, or it can be just on the sort of experience tip, like places where you really noticed that your routine, kind of did you a solid, or that where you're like, oh man, I should probably do this a little bit.
Maintaining a joy for creativity and maintaining the creative juices flowing has been important to me, because I can go through stretches where it's mainly performing and it's always different people, and then I'm trying to get into the studio and be creative in that form. And I realized maybe I haven't been feeding myself that way. And we know that we have friends that are both the pragmatic approach of they learn the gig, they murder the gig, but they don't really want to talk about music in the same way you do afterwards. And then there's other guys that are nerds about this, and they want to talk about old stuff, new stuff, the credits, the producer, the songwriter. And I notice making an effort to hang out with those people, they keep me creative. When I get back home, I'm inspired because I took something with me.
Keep you curious.
And it inspires me to, even if I'm not practicing my instrument, I need to stay in love with music. And the act of consciously feeding that love is something that I'm paying attention to more with who I'm hanging out with, and making sure that I'm not expecting the creativity to always just flourish. It's something that I have to feed by being around people. And, you know, when we get together, we talk about things that I take home and I check out these albums. You know, you guys just pulled up an album that was killing. I'm going to go home and it's going to feed me for a week. And having that as a practice, not just something that you fall into, is important. It's been important for me because you run into blocks and then you start to doubt yourself and then you start to treat people like shit. And it's a bad snowball effect.
Exactly.
It's the deliberate action that you take, like that you're like, okay, this is something I need to kind of, you know, put some effort on. All the things we talk about are obviously like very case by case. Like everybody's got their own world inside that they deal with and sort of, you know, and it manifests outwardly in all sorts of ways. And it's always an ebb and flow, right? Like this idea of like you're always going to be at the highest level of creativity or always going to feel your best or always like, bro, it's everything in life. It's like comes in waves, man. It's all ups and downs. All we can hope for is that there's like as much calm sailing as we can, but that's what allows us to deal with the ups and downs in a healthy way. If we're constantly up and down, it gets really hard to feel the ground under our feet. You know, and that applies, of course, in every facet, especially when you travel, when you're on the road and you're away from your, you know, your sort of your natural habitat per se. It's funny because you bring up the sort of the practicing thing. For me, obviously, like practicing and creative expression and you know, my journey to continue to develop myself as a musician and learn to better self-express myself and sort of you know, oil the root between mind and soul and this you know, had to take a back seat for a while, as it happens with all of us, right? We have different eras. You know, in the formative years, man, all I did was shed. I didn't care about anything else. I didn't have really responsibilities for the most part. I just would practice all day, listen to music all day, you know, for the most part, with a lot of other extracurriculars peppered in. But yeah, we definitely had some hangings back in the day.
We have fun, all right?
Yeah, come on, man. We were all young ones. But
and we still act like it.
I think we've all dealt, and we've kind of talked independently about different periods where like you feel more like you're on your game. You know, you feel more like you're in the zone, so to say, in that flow state that we talk about. And that can be like when you're playing, or it can be in your routine. Your routine allows you to be in a flow state. Like because, you know, playing or practicing music and creative endeavors really took a backseat for me for a good while there, purposefully. You know, it wasn't by mistake. It was an experiment, but it was also something that needed to be done for many reasons outside of music. And now I realized that, and I always kind of had it in my mind, that maybe it wasn't the best approach. It was necessary. I would say that certain things that I was able to achieve outside of playing an instrument in my life was, you know, all kinds of things, whether it's developing relationships with people that you love, you know, other sort of things, goals and stuff outside of music. I think that now that I'd say the past couple of months, I've been able to really sort of feed that creative fire that was kind of put on the side for a while. Thankfully, I was very active still playing music. But, you know, it's like that idea of like you're always going to have moments of exponential growth and creativity, and then you're going to have a plateau. And that plateau can be for an hour, or it can be for a year, or it can be, you know...
Depends how much you had the creative get of that. That's going to thrust the plateau longer.
And it might be, you know, nothing goes up in a straight line, right? So that idea that you're going to be constantly creative, it's amazing if it's just like a straight line. I've yet to meet somebody that has, you know, everybody stumbles, you know, along the way. But I think that idea of processing that time and getting back to the things that bring you joy, whether that's anything, it doesn't have to be music, but in my case, it was like I really realized how much like not at least spending a few hours a day shedding, in my case, which is something that I used to love to do and came naturally because of the idea that like the positive snowball effect of like the idea that it's like routine, man. It's like everything else. You stretch every day, try to eat well every day, try to, you know, all those things. And I kind of lost playing my instrument as part of that routine for a while. And now I really notice it. I mean, I always had it kind of in the back of my mind, but now I really know how much that affects me in a positive way. You know what I mean? And we all have things like that. It can be anything. It can be the meditating thing. It can be cooking. It can be whatever. You know, all these things that sort of feed into to keeping us, you know, at a place where we can be. And, you know, it's such like I feel like it gets a little bit of a bad rap, the idea of stoicism or whatever. And I don't mean like I'm not gonna sit here and like knock on the Marcus Aurelius quote shit, but I do, as somebody who's been able to travel a bunch and be in this tumultuous up and down uncertainty thing, I do realize the importance of like finding what keeps you grounded and trying to keep yourself around there so that when you have moments of sadness or life events that, you know, bring negativity, that they don't drag you all the way to rock bottom. And the same thing, I try to do that, but then I also try to really feed the moments of joy and elation. Like, hey man, like you've been chilling, things haven't gone that far down recently, this is a big thing for you, like, man, enjoy it. You know what I mean? Try to keep that even keel so that you can propel yourself into the joy and sort of, feel the feels within reason. There's going to be things that really shake you at your core, and there are going to be things that don't, but you let them make you feel like that because of all the uncertainty that's going on. Exactly. And of course, this applies to everybody, but as musicians, like we said, we already are dealing with a fair amount of uncertainty, whether it's musically, of course, whether it's personally, economically, career-wise, family-wise. There's a lot of things that having the passion and the time that it requires to try to do this at the level that we aspire to do.
We spread ourselves thin across a long landscape, and it feels like sometimes home isn't, or we're not tangible to something on the ground, and that's important, keeping ourselves grounded.
And for those of us that we travel so much, it's like knowing that home doesn't have to be a physical place. It can be. It makes things easier for sure. But it doesn't have to be the only semblance of consistency. Again, that'll obviously make you hopefully be someone that people want to be around and make music with. Because like Lopez touched on, in the first minute of this episode is like, at the end of the day, people of course really care about your musicality and they care about what you bring as a player. But man, when it comes to La Convivencia and being in a room with people for extended periods of time, it really comes down to like, is this dude a good hang? Or not? Because like that'll throw you to the bottom list in an instant. Be like, oh, I don't know if this cat, he's great, but like it's fine. We can deal with somebody that's maybe not as proficient as a performer or an instrumentalist because they're really cool to be around. They bring a good vibe.
Empathy, bro. If they lack empathy, like I wouldn't call somebody for it.
Some people get really good at their instruments so they can get taken care of. And that's something else to watch out for. You might be a virtuoso, you might be, a prodigy, but if you're doing it because you don't want to change your character, because you don't want to grow personally, then that's something that's going to get shined the light on at some point. And it's better to be conscious of that before it gets exposed in a public setting.
The empathy thing is something that we kind of, I'm lucky enough to have enough people as you are in your life that it feels like the norm. Like, of course, when you look far outside your circle or you run into situations, of course, but I feel like when you make it a priority to be kind to people, whether that is like kind in the way you greet them or kind in the way you listen to them or, musically kind in the way you give them a space to express themselves, whatever that is, that kindness really, really goes a long way. Just the fact that you're willing to allow yourself to try and be in tune with other people and other energy is something that, like, again, it just speaks volumes, man. It's just going to be, it's the kind of people that I enjoy being around. Exactly. And I think that's the kind of people, hopefully, that want to be around us. People that also look for that in others,
You touched on something that I think it's in vogue to talk about now. It's very popular with younger people to talk about how holding space is important amongst friends, amongst family, or people you work with. But it's something that we do. We're active listeners when we're playing. We're holding space for the soloist or for the singer in this portion or whatever, whoever's featured. And it's one of those things that if you can get good at doing it in person, it could also make you better as a musician. Listening takes focus, and focus takes practice. And it's something that we can practice all the time. So when we get on stage, we don't have that monkey mind battling that focus.
I mean, that's, again, like, the one of the most important things that we talked about in the last episode is like the idea of this conviction of the responsibility of the chair that you're taking on. And like the second you step on stage with one other dude or 10 motherfuckers, it's like the most important thing is how they feel and how you listen to what they're playing. This is like, aside from the instrument stuff that we kind of drove home, it's really important to know that you're exchanging an energy with the audience, with your bandmates, with everybody, and that's all something that we have to like, man, really like hold sacred, man. Like really, really cherish that in a way that like, it could be the last time, not to be nihilistic, or it could be, you know what I mean? It's like that moment in time to really be one of the most default ways, luckily as musicians, to be present is to like play live music. That shit's happening there. It's not gonna happen again. There's nothing that's premeditated about it. In many ways, it's like, of course, there's structure, but there's so many things that are like right there. And so, by default, if you're open to be in a place where you're listening and ready to play for the music, you're as present as you're ever going to be, man. That's like, that's a very easy situation to sort of force that exercise.
Right.
Indeed.
All of these long-winded topics that we covered in today's episode, I think, are paramount and really feed into the idea of like what is going to get you the gig, what is going to get you the next gig, what is going to get you the call, what is going to get you to be in the rooms with the people that you want to be in with, whether that's musically or socially or personally. I mean, I think
applies to other jobs too, not only music.
For sure, the way we carry ourselves and the energy we put forward is something that's going to speak volumes through our instrument and is going to be even harder to hide when we don't have our instrument in front of us.
Yeah.
So it's important to kind of put our best foot forward. In the word of mouth industry, man, recommendations and you being a good dude really, really go a long way, or a good gal go a really, really long way. It's word of mouth. We got no agencies out here, ain't no agents. In the sideman business, it's like, it's ruthless, but it's also the kind of thing where, when you do something well and you sort of carry yourself in a certain way that people dig, that's going to spread like wildfire.